Llámanos en vivo al 1-888-900-2811, extensión 6, y haz tus propias preguntas al aire. Está empezando el show del Dr. Roy Aranda, donde abordaremos temas sobre separación niños de padres, casos de violencia, traumas con los indocumentados, cómo resistir ante tiempos de pandemias. Llámanos en vivo al 1-888-900-2811, extensión 6, y haz tus propias preguntas al aire. ¡Comenzamos!
Good evening, my dear Tribuna viewers. Buenas noches, queridos televidentes de la ahora famosísima Tribuna TV. Aquí estamos, abril 8, para servirles. Es un show que se realizó actualmente en febrero. This show actually, and it's got quite an interesting story behind it, actually was supposed to take place on February 18th. And ironically, and Peter, you have to catch the irony of this. The show today is called Caught in the Web, Coping with Harmful Online Behavior. So enredado en la telaraña, bregando allá con los malestares de los medios de comunicación electrónicos. And I have to share with you that on February 18th, unbeknownst to my co-presenter and consultant, Dr. Peter Kanaris, and I think we're on first name basis by now, right, Peter?
I think so.
We were actually victims of a harmful online behavior on February 18th. And I can share with you some of the details of what happened. But Peter and I, with Oscar, Don Oscar, si quiere saludar a la gente.
Ok, estoy en off, pero estamos bienvenidos al show.
Okay. Peter, if you just want to say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Hello. The show's like, a month and a half later. But ironically, what happened is we actually did the entire show. And unbeknownst to Peter and me, we were victimized of this problem with the internet. And I can share with you what it was, because I had to find out for myself. But apparently at 8:45 p.m. on February 18th, there were a lot of streaming services, including Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, YouTube Live, a whole bunch of electronic platforms that were, for whatever reason, crashed. And many countries. This was like a worldwide crash. I don't want to say the entire world experienced this, but it was pretty widespread. Enough that it affected us, because we are streaming this live, and it's being streamed live on YouTube right now, and it will be available as always, either on Facebook or on Tribuna TV's website, Vimeo, probably other electronic platforms as well. But as a result of the crash, we found out later that we were robbed of half of our show. So we were actually caught in the web, and we missed the first half of our show. And ironically, the second half that was saved, you can hear, you won't hear it because you don't have it. But you would have been able to hear it when we actually did the recording, by saying to Peter, do you believe this? We had a live experience of being caught in the web, and how ironic it was that we were caught in the web when we're actually dealing with this particular title today. So that said, I did want to explain why we're late in doing this, and we do have a presentation today, and as usual, there's an introduction and a dedication, and Dr. Peter Kanaris and I, we're going to cover a number of online dangers, including cyberbullying, that is occurring, I think, probably more frequently now that people, because of the pandemic, are communicating more through electronic platforms. Infidelity, scams, and I actually have about 10 tech scams that I just want to share with you. Threats on the internet, on Facebook, on social media, trolls. These are basically the bad people that look to see who they can victimize, and they're called trolls. The trolls are really those ugly little creatures. Other dangers lurking on electronic platforms and communication. This is ever so more important in a COVID world in which we rely so much on electronic forms of communication. In the world of technology, with the good comes the bad. There is a dark side. So even putting aside the pandemic, there always is this negative side of technology. Peter and I were dedicating the show to all viewers who rely on electronic platforms with the goal that this discussion... Oscar, se me olvidó decirte que pusiera primer slide. No sé si lo pusiste. I just realized that I forgot to tell. I'm a little rusty after a month and a half. I forgot to tell Oscar to put the first slide. Okay, so there you see, actually, I'm telling you the dedication and what we're talking about. And I'm dedicating the show to, really all our viewers, because many are exposed to threats probably on a daily basis. There isn't a single day that goes by, Peter. I don't know about you, but there isn't a single day. I have 2 iPhones that I use. One for work and another one really for contact with my patients. It's a work phone, but it's primarily only for use for teletherapy with patients. The other one is actually to communicate with my office. And I use that one much more as a general computer. It's a high level iPhone. And on both of these phones, there isn't a day that goes by that I do not get a tech scam. Nor is there a day that goes by that on the internet, I don't get emails that are basically scam. And I do want to at least talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people, believe it or not, fall prey to this. And we see this all the time. And it's so sad, because you have people of limited means who mean well, who try hard, who are trying to do the right thing. And they make on faith, perhaps leap of faith. They make judgment calls that end up costing them a lot of money and possibly even their reputations. So it's really for all of the viewers that I'm dedicating this, and that little spider web, I think, symbolizes it all. And Peter and I, we were caught in it. And I certainly hope that as a result of today, that we give you enough tips. No 1 hour show is ever enough to cover everything. But I hope that we can whet your appetite enough that even on your own, you can do some research, some looking into things, checking things out, recognizing that social media is very risky, and that information you get on social media is not the best source of information that you get. If you have questions about the COVID-19 vaccination, probably, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're probably not the best sources of reputable scientific information. So that said, Peter, if you have like a message or a word or two that you want to say to the viewers before we get to the slides. Let me just mention, we are using slides. I encourage the viewers to take photos of whatever slide you might like. And once it's actually posted, you can take screenshots. These are for your use. So feel free to take screenshots and to rely on the information. Peter?
Roy, I'm glad for the opportunity that we're able to do this show. And my hope is really that we'll heighten awareness of some of the areas of concern and even the dangers of our electronic age. I'm remembering years ago, being a young person where parents would say to you, if you're out and you're in a dark area or going down an alley, always, keep your head on a swivel. Keep maximum awareness of the potential for danger. And I think it's actually true today. When we're online, we need to have that kind of awareness. Not a paranoia, but just a sense that, there are there are bad actors out there looking to do harm or even just create mischief. So keep that in the back of your mind when you operate on the internet.
Paranoia is an interesting term because something that's real is not a paranoia.
Yes.
On the other hand, I mean, a person can become so hypersensitive that any little message becomes interpreted as possibly something that's fake news. So that portion is potentially dangerous because if people are relying on information that is not accurate, misinformation, fraudulent information, and then as a result of that, they are reluctant to comply with something that perhaps is being recommended by the science, then that piece becomes a form of paranoia. It's an unrealistic belief that's not based on, it's not reality based.
Yeah.
Oscar, por favor, slide 2. So we're looking at cyberbullying, and what I'm going to do quickly is just go over it. We'll take it down, and then Peter and I, whatever catches your eye, we'll just expose it. We'll talk a little bit about it. Cyberbullying is the willful, repeated harm inflicted via the internet, cell phone, social media, emails, texting, basically to be mean, disrespectful, or hurtful. Factors that facilitate cyberbullying: lack of supervision monitoring, for instance, with your children, with minors. You're not really aware who their friends are, who they're communicating with, who their friends on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook are. And because there is such a tremendous amount of virtual anonymity, you don't really know who you're talking to. You may have a face that's posted there that's not the face of the person you're talking to. And there's probably going to be some sort of a nickname or a call name or something that's not the name of the individual you're talking to. You're not going to have, this really is John Smith. You're going to have, this is, Spiky. I'm Spiky because I like the way my hair looks now. And I decided to call myself Spiky. So you're talking to Spiky. You have no idea who you're talking to. The viral nature of things that are posted. You put something up, and if it's an email, don't assume that it's sacred or protected. It can be copied and sent by anyone to whoever they want to. If it's on Facebook, it'll go to whoever your friends are, unless you make it, or contacts, unless you make it private. And even if it goes to somebody else, nothing prevents that person from reposting it. So potentially this can go all over, which is why it's called viral. The term viral, I think, is very appropriate because we, as an example, are dealing with coronavirus, which is viral in nature, and look at the spread. So really, this is a spread of information electronically, and really the reach is all over the world. Limitless vulnerability. I mean, you can be contacted by anyone. You can be communicating with somebody from Asia. You have no idea who you're talking to. So the vulnerability is galore. And it's very easier to be cruel electronically. You don't necessarily have a relationship with the person. You don't really know who you're talking to. So when you see this in, Peter, for instance, in road rage. What is that kind of slide, Oscar? You see this, for instance, in road rage situations where people are in their car, they're driving, and somehow they are more robotic, and there's a more impersonal quality in the car. So you are possibly, potentially, depending on your personality, more inclined to want to accelerate, cut another driver off, give him the finger, mutter obscenities, do things that if you were face to face, you wouldn't do. You just wouldn't behave that way. So it's really a lot easier to be cruel electronically. So Oscar took down the slide. Peter, any comments about this first one on cyberbullying, which I really worry about a lot?
Oh, well, with good reason, Roy. I think there are several aspects of this that come to my mind. One is that with the children, okay, at one time, bullying occurred by going to school, in the cafeteria, at school, in the schoolyard. A child had to go out, okay, and it felt unsafe at times doing that because they'd be met by teasing or physical harm in some way in a form of bullying. Well, now the bullying takes place right in the child's living room or bedroom. It comes into the home. In a way, it makes the child's home less safe because electronically it comes to you in that regard. Also, as a personal example, my grandson Joshua, who's 8 years old, he loves to play video games online, Minecraft, great games like this, and he's familiar with. He told me, Grandpa, there are these hackers, and these hackers come in and they try to ruin the game, and they'll be insulting and hurtful, and you don't know. And they're, as you said before, they're anonymous. You don't know who is it, a kid, is it an adult? My son-in-law and my daughter have to carefully monitor what goes on because of that vulnerability. With adults, okay, it's a different version. You've got, it comes in so many different forms. On listservs or on social media sites, there are these flaming wars, as you were talking about before. That sense, just like road rage, where a person is empowered to be hateful and to use vile language and to go on, almost as in a protective kind of public display of anger that's pointed toward another individual online. In relationships, okay, we've got something called revenge porn. And that's a person who's been jilted or at the ending of a relationship will now use personal pictures that they'll put online to embarrass the former partner in that way. So this really comes in so many forms, even in texting. An ex-partner will text. I've had patients where they've gotten texted by a former partner like 1,000 times a day, constantly blowing their phone up. So adults and children are all vulnerable to some form of cyberbullying.
I wanted to add to that as well, and we can use the road rage and other kinds of context as an example, but a person can be goaded by peers. So a person can develop a group peer mentality where the person alone might not do something, but now encouraged by others, where barriers are lowered, the threshold is lowered. So the threshold to act out, to engage in some form of an inappropriate behavior, now it becomes easier and it's reinforced. We've heard this, for the viewers who are closer to our age would be aware of the word wilding, where somebody was saying, we from this park, like what happened in the Central Park a long time ago. And they were saying, one of them was saying, we were just wilding. So in other words, alone, the person, chances are, would not have done it, but together, you do see it. And you also see these kinds of instances in sex offense situations as well, where you have more than one person. They sort of enlist one another, and they support one another, and they reinforce one another. And this has been the subject of a lot of movies and a lot of documentaries.
Yes.
Oscar, por favor, slide 3. I labeled slide 3 as soon as Oscar puts it up. Watch out. Again, trying to give you a little bit more of an overview of some of the cautions. You have to watch what you say on any form of electronic platform that you're using. What you say is searchable. There's a lack of security. Obviously, there's people that work and they have all sorts of walls that they create, and firewalls and locked IDs and things like that to try to protect yourself. But, really most people don't know and don't do this. And even those that do use some sort of protection, It's not the the greatest protection of the world, and it's easily hackable by people that are more experts, and by people who are really the professional hackers and spammers. So there's a lack of security. You need to keep that in mind. That which is personal may become public. So if you mention some information and you think that you're chatting to a friend of yours and you're on Facebook, that's going to go out. Be aware that personal piece of information is no longer personal. You have to be careful about giving personal information because, again, you're providing leverage and fodder and substance to spammers and scammers. And there is a thriving industry of scams. And I did want to mention that since we first did this show on February 18th, that was, as I mentioned, we got caught in the web. It's about a month and a half later. And, there haven't been significant changes in terms of dangers on the internet. But the context, I think, has evolved a bit. And given that we now are in the midst of at least, 3 and a 4th COVID-19 vaccination about to be approved, you also have stimulus checks, and people are saying, I didn't get mine yet, or where's mine? Be wary. You're much more likely now to be a victim of some sort of a scam offering you maybe for a small fee, a location, or to put your name on a list for the COVID-19 vaccination, or provide your social security number, and they'll make sure that you get your stimulus check in the next hour. And meanwhile, they rip you off of whatever they're able to because you gave them that personal confidential information. So you need to really be careful. You also have increased exposure to viruses. The moment you open up a text with the link or an email with the link, you expose yourself to a virus. You cannot open those links. Anything that you do not know, you cannot. And some scammers and spammers are so good that they actually take photographs of places like United Parcel Service or Amazon, or banks, and they'll send you some email. We noticed fraudulent activity. Email here so we can advise you what to do. Those are all scams. It may subject you to threats and extortion. And here, what you said also, sexy photos can come back to haunt you, the revenge porn that we mentioned. And, of course, there's an addictive quality because if you are on some form of an internet or social media and you don't monitor how often you do this, you could spend hours and hours and hours communicating with people and friending every request that comes your way. And there's like an addictive quality to it. In terms of the threats and extortion, without mentioning any particular name, there is a high-profile person right now. I'll just give you the state in Florida. There is this implication involving some sort of a sexual kind of a conduct that, again, it's an allegation. I'm not, I really don't want to get into any of the particulars. I'm just sharing this to make a point. And according to that individual, he was extorted monetarily in order to make sure that information did not get out, did not get public. So that's really all I want to say. Puedes sacar a slide, Peter. Oscar, you don't have the slides, Peter. Peter, any additional comments to what I just said on that slide?
No, only as you're saying, Roy. Anything you get, I would also say if something's coming in that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So always be wary of it. And, I think what we'll go on to be talking about now will be some ways of trying to protect yourself.
Okay. Oscar, por favor, slide 4. I wanted to give the viewers a sample of real text scam messages that I received. a lot of them, I mean, obviously, again, as a general rule, you get the stuff on text, emails, or other sources, consider it spam. If you think something might be legitimate, go to the original source yourself and call up and ask. Okay, don't risk it. My Netflix account will be locked. I don't have a Netflix account, so if they lock it, go for it. I put link, the word link in italics because it came with a with a website address, and of course that's what they're hoping that you will click to log in. So I just abbreviated it to link. I didn't want to put it out there for anybody. Amazon payment. We have paid you. No, you have not. I'm not expecting a refund. Here, Apple immediately. Apple's giving away free Apple iPhone, iPad. Go to it. Verify if you're one of the winners. Dear user, your phone has been getting too many spam texts. Well, that's true. I really have been getting too many spam texts, but that happens to be one of them. That is one of the spam texts. Final notification, delivery. I have no idea what that ID thing is. There's absolutely no way I would click that. Department of Motor Vehicles does not send you text messages. Okay, they're not gonna send you a message to renew on text. If you have an account, by the way, if you have a legitimate account with New York State Department of Motor Vehicles, and you know what it is because you have to log in and they have your ID and so forth, they may communicate with you through email and just letting you know that they'll mention the car that's due for a renewal, and you'll know if that's your car that's due for renewal, but that's legitimate. Okay, not this. Hi, Kenneth. I'm not even Kenneth, so you think that they would get the name right. Your order was delivered, an iPhone. Again, I didn't order an iPhone. Due to the pandemic, Netflix giving you free 1 year. I'm guessing that you probably could go to Netflix for real on the TV, and chances are they would give you some sort of a free trial. But you do that off of the TV. You do that for real. You don't do that off of the text. Kenneth again. Ken, wow, I need to lose. Peter, if I lose 60 more pounds, I'm gonna disappear. So I already lost about 50 pounds. Jane from USPS. So that's probably what they believe to be United States Postal Service. But it's really UPS is the real symbol. Other than that, you're really dealing with the mail, United States mail delivery. So some sort of a package to contact them via link. So puedes sacar a slide. I thought it would be just fun to show those that sample of text. I'm sure you get some fun text yourself and emails yourself. Peter, any comments on those messages?
No, they just come in relentlessly, and some of them make their way to your primary inbox, and some will be picked up as spam. Okay, but it's almost like you've got to consider it all spam until in some way you've been able to verify that this is legitimate.
You have to also be very careful about your emotional reaction to a message that you might get. As an example, I got a message and it looked like it came from it came from one of the one of the services that I have that I'm able to make purchases. And it came presumably from them. They had copied the logo and they put it down. And the message was that I'm about to be delivered a large sum of money spent on purchasing weapons, on purchasing guns. And, not with all due respect to people and their amendment rights to bear arms and whether they need to be protected or not. my thing is that, like, I have never in my life held or touched a gun, and I don't ever intend to. And that message was directed to me, and I reacted emotionally. So I wanted really to caution the viewers that there may come a time that you get a scam or a spam type of a message that you react emotionally because you say, why on earth, how can I possibly be paying for this? Like, I'm totally opposed to this. And be very careful, because that might lead you to impulsively react and respond and fall a victim to it. And that can create all sorts of problems, with bank accounts and frozen accounts and having to really protect yourself. So that's another question.
Also, Roy, another feature that they seem to, they're so clever in, they can have a way of identifying aspects, demographics and aspects about who you are. Well, a number of my colleagues, probably you as well, I have, where I'll get an email saying that, my daughter is coming from outside of the country and requires your services as a psychologist, and I'm going to send you all this money, and it's part of a scam that they will then later on look for money back from the psychologist. But what you think is that, someone needs help that's coming from outside the area. They're only going to be in the area for a short time. I've got to respond. And they cleverly are able to identify, hey, I'm a psychologist, so they're coming after me with a scam that's tailored to who I am. And
that's geared to your profession.
Yes.
Want to make more money? We have connections with all sorts of services on the internet now, guaranteed, and so forth. Click here if you want to be one of our providers. Another one is you might get a message from a friend, a colleague, someone you know, telling you that he or she is stuck somewhere, that they lost their wallet or that they were held up, and that they need you to wire them some money immediately, because otherwise, they don't know what else to do. And you get a correct name, you get a name of a person.
Yes.
And chances are that it's obviously somebody who hacked and got a hold of your email. So they know your email, they know who you are, and they're clever enough to figure out how to communicate with you something, hoping that you'll react. Oh my God, poor Peter. Peter, where are you? I've been Dito. What happened?
Yeah.
I know we were supposed to get together for the holidays, and I didn't see you. Now I know why. I know what happened.
Send money. Yes.
Now I know why. All right, Oscar, por favor, slide 5. I want to give you some suggestions of what to do. And again, as I told you at the beginning of the show, there is no 1 hour program that can cover everything. So I'm just hoping that this gives you enough of a taste, enough of a sample, that it'll inspire you to look further if there are instances that Peter and I don't cover or haven't covered that you think are important to you or to a loved one or to colleagues or peers or friends and so forth. Think before responding or hitting send. Take the time to pause, think, do you really want to send this? Ask a trusted person or professional for advice if you are unsure. If you suspect it's a scam, call the credit card company, bank, whatever organization you're getting the supposed message from. Go to the original official site or the credit card. Go to whoever, but the official site. Educate yourself. You need to find out what your communication styles are, what your platforms are, what your preferences are, so that, again, if you're a psychologist, you might get the type of messaging that Peter just mentioned a few moments ago. Don't text or read and send emails while driving or out in the street. Mostly because, not that you're going to be a victim of caught in the web, but you're going to be run over by a car. That's a slightly different risk. Okay, there you run the risk of really getting in an accident or being hit by a car. I mean, so that's Peter. The last time, because I've been pretty much, as a result of the pandemic, dealing with a physical distancing, not a social distancing. I know we've talked about physical distancing really as keeping a certain number of feet away from people as a result of the pandemic for our safety. but not to social distance. Social distance is incorrect. We want to be socially together with people. You just don't want to be socially together 2 feet away from somebody unless you live with the person, or now everyone's vaccinated or whatever. And the rules are sort of like changing a little bit for people who already had both vaccinations. So basically, you really want to be careful of. Oh, my point was that prior to the pandemic, I used to ride the Long Island Railroad fairly often. I would go to Penn Station. There were times I had to travel to Albany or do evaluations upstate, lobby day for New York State Psychological Association. And I would go on the Long Island Railroad, and I was stunned when I would look around me that like everybody was on the phone. I mean, everybody was either on the phone or on an iPad. So if that's actually still true, then at home people are on an iPhone. One of the things to think about is, do you say, is the last thing that you say goodnight to before you go to bed your iPhone? And it's the first thing you greet in the morning, your iPhone. And you get up in the middle of the night because you hear a text coming through, or you double check to see if you got messages. I mean, if you do, then you probably are using the iPhone too much, and you can see the addictive quality of it. And if you're doing that at home, then I can imagine when you go outside, you're going to be doing it outside too. You're doing it in a restaurant. I would go to restaurants and I say, but put the phone down. Why don't you eat, enjoy the food, put the phone down. Stop texting, stop doing this. It's amazing, the addictive quality, but that addictive quality can have an effect on you emotionally and physically if you are in danger, if you put it in harm's way. So parents, you need to know what your children are doing. You have to know who their teachers are. Now with so much education taking place virtually, they're in these virtual classrooms. You need to have an idea of who they're contacting, who's contacting them. And even if they are not in a virtual environment, you still need to know, obviously, who they're in touch with, who their friends are, who they communicate with on their phone and on their computer. Don't think that you're invading their privacy. You need to, in some ways, respect their privacy, age appropriately respect their privacy. But you still are the parent, and you still are responsible for them, and you know more than they do about staying safe. Consider purchasing identity theft protection. I know I have. And monitor your credit report regularly. I think that these are some very important caveats. Puedes sacar a slide, Oscar. Peter, anything to add to this?
Just to amplify what you were saying before regarding the involvement with the phone, morning, night, and in between, we're going to be talking a little bit about infidelity in the digital age. And what I call infidelity with a small I is our love and our involvement with our phone that has replaced so much of the time and involvement that we used to have with people, with our partners, with our family. We are now dedicated to our phones and involved with our phones. These companies have developed algorithms that are not very different from the casino and the old one-armed bandit that has us coming back on intermittent reinforcement, looking for the next ding, the next like, the next thing that we can do that evolves with our phone. I refer to the phone as the 13th digit because it's almost always in our hands or close by our sides. It's something that we've got to monitor and realize we have to develop some ideas and some rules for managing it because, as you were suggesting, Roy, it'll affect our health, but it will also affect our important relationships.
And you need to consider that, again, what we've mentioned before, the pandemic has probably increased our reliance on electronic platforms because we're not able to access people as much as before. Yeah. It's clearly something that if previously, just as an example, if previously and you were able to get from your phone how much iPhone usage you had during the week before the pandemic, and let's say that it was 20 hours, chances are that during the pandemic it's gone up to 40 hours.
Yeah.
You're able to get these numbers. You know, in some ways.
I've referred to the pandemic as an accelerator of our involvement with technology and with electronic forms of communication.
Okay. So, Peter, for the next about 15 or so minutes, we're going to be talking about your area of expertise, which is cyber infidelity. Oscar, por favor, slide 6. I'm just going to have Oscar put it up. I know you're familiar with your own slide. I just want the viewers to see it. Cyber infidelity. Yep. At the top, AAAP, accessibility, affordability, anonymity, portability. I'll give the readers just basically a couple of moments just to read what's on the slide. Again, I encourage you to take a photo or screenshot once it airs. And I've also given you Dr. Peter Kanaris' website. So voy a sacar a slide. So Peter, just take it away. This is certainly your area of expertise. And I know that because you've been a guest in this realm previously.
Well, I talk about infidelity in the digital age, Roy. And as I was saying before, I think the infidelity today comes in two forms. The large I, which is where we are being unfaithful to our partners and involved via the internet with someone else in a way that violates our contract with our partner. But the small I infidelity is what I was talking about before. The drawing away of our attention from our partner, from our relationship, because now we are so deeply involved with our phones in a variety of ways. Okay. Well, what happens? What's the appeal? As you mentioned, the app of AAAP, accessibility. It's easily accessed. I call it the 13th digit, as I mentioned before. It tends to be affordable for more and more people. As we were talking about before, there could be often a form of anonymity where I could behave in ways where if you knew who I was, I might behave more civilly or with better boundaries, but you don't know, so I could be totally free. And portability. It's with me all the time, day and night. Okay. So what do I find happening with couples? Usually there's the explosion, the discovery of a cyber affair. And this could be an old flame found on social media. It could involve sexting. It can involve just emotional intimacies, but something that violates the contract and the boundaries of the relationship as it was established. Then there's treatment is often sought as the last hope of the relationship. Where the couple shows up in my office, it's because the explosion has gone off, and very often that they're at the end point of crisis. Then very often there is the accusation of sexual addiction. Sexual addiction on the part of the offending partner, the partner that goes outside of the bounds of the partnership, of the relationship. And sexual addiction is really not a term that psychologists typically support. There's not a lot of data to support the idea of sexual addiction. What we find, though, is that there can be sexual behavior that feels out of control, that the person has lost control over and needs to regain control of their own sexuality. Beyond that, there's the broken trust. And this is the great problem where now a trusting relationship, the trust has been shattered. And how to put that back together is one of the big challenges that the couple faces. Usually the partner that was betrayed suffers a very deep emotional wound, very often feeling inadequate, feeling that they're not good enough anymore, that their partner was unfaithful. Then there's the pervasive digital threat. And this is what's different from what infidelity used to look like. I call it 20th century infidelity, versus 21st century infidelity. 21st century infidelity typically, about 98% of the time, revolves around the internet, and either the meeting took place on the internet, how I met the person from social media, or is maintained through the internet and the phone. And now, what used to require going out to see the person, now the infidelity can occur right there in the living room while the partner is 3 feet away, and it's unknown. So, and that's pervasive. That's around all of the time. Traditionally, the way we've thought about affairs is that, well, there must be an underlying relationship issue. Often there is, okay, some problem in the relationship that has contributed to there being an affair. It could be a sexual problem that has been undiscussed, undiagnosed. There could be a kink on the part of one of the partners that has not been expressed, and now they're going out to find opportunities to engage in that behavior. They've not discussed it with their partner. And then there are underlying individual issues that could be driving the behavior, what we call comorbidities or other conditions that are contributing to that kind of behavior. Now, maybe, Roy, we can go on to the next slide and talk.
I did want to ask you to have the underlying dynamics of cyber infidelity change in any significant way as a result of the pandemic. I mean, I would anticipate, for instance, I know that domestic violence has increased. There's increases in abusive kinds of behaviors. So I think a hypothesis for me would be that cyber infidelity during a pandemic era would perhaps be either on the increase or modified in some way. So I wanted to defer to your expertise in answering that question.
Yeah, I think what we're finding there, Roy, is that it's interesting because generally the pandemic has dampened or depressed sexual desire. It's more generally hurt libido, okay? However, a common problem that we sex therapists encounter is that people have discrepant levels of desire. So one person is more desirous, the other is less. Well, that can then lead to, instead of discussing it or finding a way to work it out, that partner could then seek other avenues on the internet for sexual satisfaction or relational satisfaction. So it can, the pandemic additionally, which has increased levels of irritability for people. So it makes it harder to, things that would normally roll off your back are now sometimes the occasion for an argument that didn't exist before. So there's more tension, there's less personal space, there's generally less sexual desire, but that phone, boy, is a portal to the outside world. And that could lead to finding sometimes solutions that exacerbate the problem or form a new problem.
Okay. Oscar, por favor, slide 7. I'm just going to put it up momentarily so that the viewers can see what you prepared on the treatment. ¿Ya está, Oscar? Okay. It's a 4-session. Peter addresses a 4-session assessment approach. I'm just going to post it long enough for you to look at it, take a photo, or wait to take a screenshot. And then I'll have Peter address his own 4-session assessment approach. And then I'm going to see if Peter's interested in doing a little role play. So, Oscar, por favor, puedes sacar a slide. So, fill us in on your assessment approach.
Okay, so just briefly, when a couple appears in my office or on my screen, as it is more common these days, and sometimes it's a couple and sometimes it's an individual who's, as I said before, might be sent in because he's been self-identified as a sexual addict, okay? But in any event, it's often commonly the couple itself, and the couple will appear. And the very first step in the first session is for them to tell their story, for the therapist to understand exactly what do they think. What do they think the reasons are that's happening? What is a description of the problem and their understanding of what motivates it and drives it? What have they done before to try to deal with it? What's the current status of the relationship or the marriage? And once we get clear on that, it becomes time then there'll be a session that I will have alone with each partner. Okay, and invariably one of the things that we find is the person that violated the trust, okay, suffers from a great deal of shame and guilt. Again, I'm overgeneralizing. That's not always the case, but commonly we find that with a person who's gone outside the relationship. The other partner is dealing with a great deal of hurt, anger, and insecurity. And both, what they have in common is both people are hurting. Both people are suffering from what's happened and really feel a sense of despair. And usually when they're coming for treatment at that point, it's kind of at the very end of the process of desperation. It's almost like, okay, doc, what are you going to do? How are we going to address this? Because the marriage is, or the relationship is teetering on the brink. One of the very important things that has to be immediately addressed or fairly early on is, what do you do about trust? When trust has been shattered, we have to find a way to work toward a restoration of trust. And that's a model that I've developed for trusting or learning to trust again, is the recognition that originally in our relationships, usually the model of trust that we use, I call this blind faith, the blind faith approach. All right. And you're my beloved. I trust you implicitly until the bad thing happens. And now I don't know what to do. I don't know how to trust. If I try to go back to blind faith, I feel foolish. And often my friends and family will tell me, don't be a fool. Once a liar, always a liar. You hear things like this. So now I can't go back to blind faith. I need a new model for trusting. That model, I'm calling it an evidence-based model for trust, to slowly and gradually work collaboratively to develop trust over time, gaining confidence little by little, not realizing I'm never going to be 100% secure or 100% certain, but I'll be able to get my feet solidly on the ground again and feel that if I'm trusting, it's because we're working together, we're collaborating, my partner is being transparent, and we're slowly building confidence. One of the methods that I use is something from family therapy called externalization of the problem. Instead of dwelling on what's wrong with you, what's wrong with us, we'll pay attention to any of those problems, but we'll also appreciate that in a digital age, that the internet is a threat. As we've been talking about this whole program, that danger that just like in bullying, where the kid had to go out of the house to get bullied, and now it comes into the home, so does infidelity. So does the opportunities and the enticements to go outside of a relationship that might not have occurred if not for our current digital world. Okay, so the idea is we've got to band together and develop a way of managing the electronics, of managing the cyber world together in a transparent way to downsize and minimize that threat. So in a sense, the enemy is not each other, okay, but the enemy is the technology that we've got to tame and we've got to control and manage. And then finally, the solution, the approach is collaborative and cooperative. We form a treatment team where we all work together, okay, and we join forces, okay, in a cooperative way, which is very different from traditionally what happens is there's a cat and mouse that game that develops where the hurt partner is checking the phone and is looking and wondering. It's sort of cat and mouse. is my partner misbehaving? Is my partner out there? Now we develop a transparency, an availability, where now the partner who's gone outside the marriage is open and no longer secretive. And now even compromising privacy for a time in the service of reassuring the partner that's been hurt. What I'm talking about here, Roy, is a very quick thumbnail sketch of a process that really plays out in 1,000 different ways with couples, but it gives a sort of a general idea. What I like people to know is that I've developed something called a guide to infidelity in the digital age. It can be gotten at my website. It's accessible to professionals, but also to the public. And many of these concepts are laid out in very usefully and simple terms. It's downloadable and it's free. And my website's cyberinfidelityhelp.com. Anyone is welcome to download it and look it over.
Okay, so picking up a little bit on this, and as a psychologist, I'm pretty much aware of of different differences in power, who has power and who doesn't have power. And certainly when you're talking about conducting therapy with more than one person, except for group therapy, a person tends to be the identified patient. So the identified patient would probably be the one who got caught doing the hurtful behavior, and that in and of itself would put the spouse on a higher power plane, because that spouse now has some control over the offending spouse. And I'm wondering, and certainly with what you talk about, collaboration and cooperation, I'm guessing that you try to minimize, or you try to say, let's not focus on Joe is the offender and Mary was the abused one, but that both of you were victims of a technology, and let's try to focus on the problem. Let's make the problem the identified patient.
That is correct, Roy. Okay, where the problem almost becomes, if you think of, we're in the room, myself and the two participants, the problem with the technology almost becomes the fourth participant, and the one who is not a client, the one who is not our friend, the one who we have to collaborate and together work to understand the influence, the effect that it's had, and how to manage it successfully, because it's not going to go away. You know, it's not realistic to say, well, we're not going to use devices anymore, or this is not going to be part of our lives. It is so interwoven that the better way to go is to understand how to collaboratively and transparently deal with this together, while we also at the same time respect the wound that has occurred and how the hurt that's happened to the wounded partner, okay, and the reasons why the other partner has gone outside of the relationship. So if there are individual factors, if there are couple factors, we will address those as well.
All right, we have a few minutes remaining, but I just wanted to state to the viewers, who may be experiencing this or have experienced this or in need for some sort of a consultation with Dr. Peter Kanaris and or therapists. Do by the way, make sure that you are seeking help from a person who's qualified. It's not just because you have a degree and a title that makes you an expert in this field. But I did want to share that that Peter, at least on a case-by-case basis, would intervene if there are excessive differentials in power. He's not going to let somebody run roughshod over the other one, because obviously that would be counterproductive to the therapy. But that's part of the therapy process itself. Peter, I wanted to do a very quick role play. To the viewers, I'm on Skype. I'm glad I kept a little bit of distance from Oscar. This way, if he if he gives me a signal that it's time to end, at least he can't pull that cane on me and pull me off off the stage. We're very physically distanced now, much more than usual. But I do plan to go to the studio next time, the end of April. So Peter, I'm the husband who was caught in a cyber infidelity situation. Thanks to the pandemic, I was chit-chatting with a former female friend, although I'm insisting that that's all that it was, and so forth. And that's a bit of the context. So you're the doctor. So can I begin?
Yes.
Okay. So Doc, this I'm really getting annoyed. I mean, like I know that she picked this up, she grabbed the phone, she has really no right to grab my phone every single time that she wants to, and she does this all the time. I mean, she was doing this before I got caught in the app, and all I was doing was just chatting with somebody from the past because of the pandemic. I heard people say it's good to reopen relations, establish stuff. She got a hold of me through FaceTime and through Facebook, excuse me, and just sent me a message, and we were just doing a little bit of chit-chatting. But, this thing of all the time, she wants to check my phone, grabs the phone, looks at the phone, who are you talking to? It could be at work. I could be doing work because I'm doing a lot of virtual work at home. She grabs my phone. Who are you talking to? What are you doing? Who are you saying? Why are you whispering? I mean, I'm getting this all the time, and it's like, I don't know what to do. It's like it's annoying. I understand she felt hurt, but I think that I'm being really run over. I'm being thrown under the bus.
Well, Roy, it seems from what you're saying that it really has been annoying and intrusive for you by your wife's behavior of checking in this way, and it sounds like she's been on your back a great deal. I guess I'm wondering if there's any reason for it. Very often a person that's behaving that way is feeling some insecurity, but also feels that their partner has been somewhat secretive. Is there anything to that?
I mean, I have communications with a lot of people. I mean, because I have I have patients. I have a lot of work with other professionals. I also find that I like to talk to people who may be interested in similar hobbies. I'm a car buff. I have a 1964 and a half Mustang, and I love to talk to people who have classic cars. And so so I'm on a lot. If there's anything that I'm guilty of, yes, I'm definitely using electronic forms of communication since the pandemic a lot more than before. And it seems that perhaps our level of discourse has cut down dramatically. And I know that there are times that she said, you don't even talk to me, Roy,
I think you're onto something. I think that she may be reacting, and I would love to talk to her about this as well as we go forward, but she may be...
I'll send her a text that she can talk to you.
She may be reacting to that loss of attention and that sense that not so much that you're having an affair with any actual person out in the world somewhere, but in a sense, you're having an affair with your phone. And an affair, in a sense, with a small I affair, is that you are now, as so many people are, giving so much attention to the phone that energy and that attention has to be drawn away from somewhere. Usually what we do is we draw it away from our partners. So there's two thoughts that I have straight away. One is that it would be a good idea to talk with your wife, to develop a sense of mutually agreeable ground rules on the usage of the phone and how often and when, and to be transparent about exactly some of the things, not defensively, but to be open about letting her know some of the show her some of the sites that you go, some of the things, some of the hobbies, some of the involvements, to make it less secretive and a little bit more open in that regard. and then to kind of do what you were saying, to find ways of spending time with her, not just pandemic time when we're forced to be together, but actually attending to each other in some way, participating with each other. That might help her to feel a little bit more relaxed about things.
Would it be helpful if whether spontaneously and or planned, we take like a 30-minute chunk of time every day just to chit-chat? Or maybe we do it around our favorite news program that we like to watch together that's an hour long, and both of us put our phones away during that 1 hour. So all we're doing is watching the show, or any show. It doesn't have to be necessarily a news show, or anything, or even maybe schedule like a sit-down dinner at the table or something, just to do that spontaneously and or by some sort of schedule.
I think that those are marvelous ideas, okay? But I'm not the guy you got to convince. What I would say is that give suggestions like that and create a dialogue with your wife and see what appeals to her and see what she wants to sign on to. And I think those ideas are definitely will head the two of you in the right direction.
There was one more thing I was thinking of doing, and I have to tell you, it was painful for me to come up with this. Believe me, it was a very painful idea. But I was thinking that maybe I can offer her on a once-a-week basis. I give her my phone. She knows how to, I don't have any, she has all the passwords. Give her my phone once a week and tell her you got a half an hour to do what you want with my phone.
Also an excellent idea, but I would, again, rather than force it on her, I would say that you're offering that if she feels a need to check. It's more of a sense of availability that I'm not hiding, okay? And again, your attitude in doing that is what's critical. If it's like, take my phone, no. If it's saying, hey, I want you to feel comfortable, I want to make my phone available to you if you feel anxious about things.
But then on the other hand, if she opts not to and continues to like insist on grabbing my phone whenever she feels like it, then I have every perfect right of saying, I offered you a period of time every week to do what you want to do.
Well, it's my experience that if you become more transparent or more available, what you will start to see is a decrease in that phone checking, grabbing of the phone behavior. Over time, you'll see improvement in that corresponding to your transparency and cooperative behaviors with her.
All right, let's do this. I know that we have an appointment, a virtual appointment scheduled for next Wednesday. Why don't we talk about it, and I'll initiate it.
That sounds great.
Okay. Oscar, por favor, el slide 8. We're going to go to the last slide, which is how to contact us. There's my logo, Unlocking the Mystery with Psychology. My business card is on the left side. Long Island Psychological Consulting. My phone number's Peter. His address, phone number, fax, and on the slides he also gave you a website. Underneath that, New York State Psychological Association. Peter and I both members of it. We've held many positions and many roles there, and it is the premier psychological association of New York State. You have the contact information there. Beneath that, the American Psychological Association with their address, phone number, and a website. They are the overall parent organization of all the state organizations and the provinces. And our local association, Suffolk County Psychological Association, small but powerful. This is one of the best associations that I can think of. It's remarkable everything that they do. I provided you the website, the phone number. It's amazing. I would also like to share for the viewers, the New York State Psychological Association does offer a 6-session intervention program for people who are suffering from PTSD. Go to NISPA's website. You can find more information about it. It is pro bono. It's free. Puedes sacar el slide. Oscar, si quieres despedirte.
Un feliz fin de semana muy bonito.
Peter, any parting comments?
I hope we've been helpful in providing this information to make the challenges of handling the internet and the World Wide Web a little less daunting.
Okay.
Again, Roy, thank you for having me.
To all my viewers, I mean, we hope that this was helpful. Again, that it whet the appetite. There's much more there, so we encourage you to do some self-education. Also, the show will be available on YouTube, on Tribuna TV's website, Vimeo, and Facebook. Feel free to take screenshots. Next time that I have the show towards the end of April, I'm planning to go to the studio, so you'll be able to see me really live again. Right now, it's been live, but through Skype. And that said, I really hope that you'll take care of yourself. Be careful. There's a lot of dangers out there. Ask for help if you need it. Don't be shy. And I wish you all a wonderful beginning spring, and hoping that we start seeing greater light at the end of the tunnel. God knows we've been in the dark for almost a year, so it's good to start seeing things change. Have a wonderful and happy beginning of spring, and buenas noches. Good night to all viewers. Buenas noches, Oscar. Good night, Oscar. Good night, Peter. Thank you for your wisdom and your presence.
Be well.